Strand Hunter is honestly one of the best setups in the entire game. We finally made it to the final class in the series and be going over the best Strand build since Lightfall is about to come to an end. We're taking things that we've unlocked and even learned alongside buffs and nerfs to put together the perfect build to have before Season of the Deep comes out. And in my opinion, if you build the Strand Hunter correctly, it becomes one of the best Hunter builds in the entire game. I do think Void Hunter is a little bit better, but when it comes to crowd control, I honestly don't think there's any build better than this one except maybe Strand Titan. And even then, they're pretty much on the same playing field, and you could argue that this one's a little bit better because it does have more things in its kit to stun enemies. So if you want to be pretty much unkillable with a permanent 60% damage reduction and have the ability to make none of your enemies shoot you in the first place, this build is 100% for you. But hey, are you in the market for a brand new gaming PC? Well, look no further than my custom line of Apex gaming PCs. All of these are price optimized to run Destiny 2 at a great performance, and you can completely customize it the way you want to if you would like to swap anything out. All the links that you'll need are in the description of this video, and remember that you can save up to $250 when you use code REST at checkout. All right, jump right into it. Let's start taking a look at our aspects. So let's go over our first one, Ensnaring Slam. So activate your air move to consume your class ability energy and dive to the ground, suspending all nearby targets on impact. Using this ability extends class ability cooldown time. So this ability turns your dodge to a very cool air movement that will actually just suspend everything in the entire game. Suspend is by far the strongest part of the Strand subclass, completely rendering pretty much every single champion in the game useless, and also making it so that every single enemy just will never be able to shoot you. You can use this both as an offense tool and a defense tool, because if something is chasing you down, you could just ensnaring slam them to put them in the air, or if you just want to use it offensively, just jump into a crowd of enemies and snare slam all the way to the ground, and literally nothing will shoot you. I cannot stress how strong this is, and it's only going to get even better later as we get into the build. And one of those things that will make it stronger is our exotic we're going to be taking, that is the 6 Coyotes. So this has the exotic trait double dodge and gain a second dodge charge. This is pretty self-explanatory. You're just going to get 2 charges in total, and typically this exotic is not the most utilized exotic in the game because your dodge already has a relatively small cooldown, and there's other exotics that pair better with your dodge. But with this specifically, since you're taking Ensnaring Slam and using that all the time, this is just going to give you 2 Ensnaring Slams. That is very, very strong because you're also going to have the ability to increase the cooldown of these Ensnaring Slams like crazy. So having 2 of them in your back pocket, you pretty much have infinite class ability to use at your own disposal. Now, speaking of double charges, let's take a look at our next aspect, and that is Widow's Silk. So you have an additional grenade charge. Your grapple creates a grapple tangle at the grapple point. Now, we're actually not going to be using grapple with this, and we're mainly going to be running the shaft grenade. So we're not going to take advantage of that second part because we're not running grapple, but this still does work with all your other grenades. So this essentially now will grant you 2 shackle grenades, and you will also have 2 ensnaring slams. So with that, it means you are going to have 4 cooldowns that has the ability to suspend everything in the game. Again, suspend makes every single enemy in this game useless by not being able to attack you, and you can also easily hit their crit spots, and you're going to have infinite cooldown of these abilities back and forth, and you can literally suspend an entire battlefield. Now, your melee is Threaded Spike. You can throw this out, it tracks everything, it will sever targets, which means they do reduce damage. Then you can actually grab it when it comes back to you to get some cooldown. They're actually going to be buffing this a lot next season, so it's going to be a lot better. Mainly you're just using this for severing enemies. So if you go into a boss fight, just throw this on a target, or just any tankier target, they just do reduce damage to you. So that's really, really cool. Now, your super is Silk Strike. This is honestly a great ad clear super. You can just twirl the rope all around, pretty much kill everything. And then if you need to do any single target damage, you do have that ability to get that perfect link and let that tip do all its damage, and you can actually put out a good bit of single target damage even though this is a roaming super. So the super is honestly a great addition to this class, and it's nothing to be slept on. Now, for fragments, we're going to be running Threat of Mind. So defeating suspended targets grants class ability energy. Like I said, we're going to be able to get our Ensnaring Slam cooldown back a lot, mainly from this fragment alone. Since your aspect will suspend enemies, this just means the fragment will refill that aspect, and it refills it with a lot of energy. So never be afraid again if you have to use this defensively, or if you just want to use it all the time, because you will always have it back with Threat of Mind. Now, the other fragment is Threat of Warding. So picking up an orb power grants Wolf of Mel. Wolf of Mel is a 60% damage reduction. All you have to do is pick up an orb Orbs are obviously everywhere in the game right now, so this pretty much just gives you a permanent 60% damage reduction alongside nothing ever really being able to shoot you in the first place. So you become very, very tanky and you pretty much can never die. Now your next fragment is Threat of Generation. So dealing damage grants grenade energy. So everything in your kit will grant you grenade energy, so you just have more shackle grenades to throw. So this fragment's basically giving your class ability, and then this one's giving you a grenade. So again, you can suspend everything all the time. Then the last fragment is Threat of Continuity. So suspend, unravel, and sever effects applied to targets have increased duration. So the main one from this is obviously going to be suspend, pretty much being everywhere in this build, but it's also really good with sever because it will make your threat spike sever enemies for a little bit longer. But with this fragment, I'm not even joking, you literally can have your enemies up in the air all the time, especially with the amount of cooldown you have between Threat of Generation and things like Threat of Mind. Now for stat distribution for this build, I highly recommend 100 Resilience. This is going to give you 30% damage reduction that will stack with Woven Mail, so you pretty much become even more unkillable. And then I would highly recommend 100 Discipline so you can get that Shackle Grenade back as much as possible. If you have any extra points, I would definitely recommend putting in Mobility if you can, but honestly, you don't need Mobility too much because Threat of Mind is just that strong of a fragment, and it pretty much is always going to give you infinite class ability back anyway. But if you want to top that off even more, definitely try to get to 100 in this. And then for weapons, just pretty much go with any good DPS meta option. Nothing really matters too much. The only thing I would highly recommend is the Quicksilver Storm. Now, Quicksilver Storm with this catalyst does actually make this weapon Strand, and when you get kills with this grenade launcher, it will make tangles. But this actually did get changed to now it does its 40% increased damage to red bars, and auto rifles also got a 20% damage buff. This thing will actually shred enemies. It is very, very good pairing with the Strand subclass. Honestly, Quicksilver Storm can be your weapon for minors, mages, and you can even do a good amount of boss damage with it. And it's kind of just like your all-in-one package, and it just pairs so well with Strand. Now, artifact mods are going to be going away next season, but if you're playing it right now, you might as well take advantage of things like Untangler, Threaded Blast, Allied Unraveling, and Counterweave just to make your tangles do more damage, have larger radius, explode, you get some more energy back. You do not need these mods for this build to work in any way, but it is a good option to take if you are going to be playing it at the end of this season. But all right, let's jump over into mods, and if you want to see an in-depth infographic of this build, be sure to head over to Mobalytics. I will have a link down below, and you can check everything out there while I go over it in the video. But all right, starting off with our helmet, we're going to be running a Strand Siphon so we can make Orbs of Power on Rapid Strand Weapon Final Blows. This is going to be really good because we're going to be able to make orbs with our Quicksilver Storm, which will give us armor charge and some other benefits once we get later down the mod line. Now we're also going to be running a heavy ammo finder because nothing else really matters too much with this build. Your abilities aren't going to be getting that many kills, so you're not going to be getting that extra super energy. Dynamo does not work with Ensnaring Slam, unfortunately, so just taking a heavy ammo finder to get some more heavy is nice. And what's also really cool is that if you do an exotic primary like Quicksilver, it does have an increased chance to spawn that heavy ammo. Then I also have a heavy ammo scout, just so whenever I make heavy ammo with heavy ammo finder, it also can go to my teammates. Now I'm also going to be running a Strand loader so I can increase the reload speed of my Strand weapon. So Quicksilver Storm, if you want to run a Strand heavy, there's not too many in the game right now that is really good for DPS meta. Maybe there will be some in Season of Deep, but you can obviously throw one of those on there too to get some increased reload speed. But I also like to run a bolstering detonation so I get some class ability energy when I do damage with my grenade. Since my class ability suspends and my grenade suspends, this just means now every time I use my grenade, I just get some extra energy for that class ability to suspend enemies. And I also like to throw in a grenade kickstart so I get some grenade energy back once I throw it. Also on top of that, this does take advantage of armor charge, and this will give you even more grenade energy the more armor charge you have. So this is going to be really good for letting you spam your grenades all the time, just like your class ability. Now for your chest piece, always go with resistant mods. You don't really need anything else in this slot to perform better, so this literally is just your best bet to increase your survivability. With everything else in this build pair with these, you're pretty much unkillable. Now for our boots, we're going to be running a recuperation, so we pick up a Orb of Power, we get some health, a better already, so when we pick up an Orb of Power, it will start our health generation, and then an innervation, so it will reduce our grenade cooldown when we pick up an Orb of Power. So obviously getting the grenade cooldowns are going to be really, really good. You don't really need to get anything back for your class ability because Threat of Mind is just that strong with giving that energy back. And honestly, the reason I like taking recuperation and better already is because recuperation will give you that huge chunk of healing when you pick up an orb on top of giving you Woven Mail, which is that 60% damage reduction, but you also will start replenishing health. So this just means if you're not taking damage, you can get out of a fight, and since you're suspending enemies in the first place, you're barely ever going to be taking damage, so this will always let you just heal to full all the time. It is pretty much 100 recovery the second you pick up an orb, which is very, very nice. And if you get out without taking damage, you obviously get to full, but even if you are in middle fight, it kind of acts as a little bit more health that will pair with recuperation. I think it is a pretty strong combo to pair together if you do need more survivability with a build. Well, let's move on to our class item, and honestly, there isn't much you can really run in this slot for this build. Things like Healthy Finisher is going to be good if you want to get some health back when you perform a finisher, alongside Proximity Ward giving you an overshoot when you do a finisher. But things like Bomber, Outreach, Distribution, even Utility Kickstart, Reaper, none of these actually work with this build. The only reason I have a Time Dilation slotted in, which also is doing nothing, is just to, you know, use energy right here. But obviously you can slide it out because it's not doing anything. But if you want to take something like a Font of Restoration, you could to get some more recovery, but that will actually put a timer on your armor charge, which kind of sucks because you do want to mainly use it for Grenade Kickstart. But you could opt in to take something like a Time Dilation with a Font of Restoration if you want to. But there really is just nothing that will perform well with this build, because Ensnaring Slam does not work with any of these mods, and they mainly take advantage of your class ability. I really hope in the future Bungie does implement a hotfix that will make these class item mods work with Ensnaring Slam, but as of right now they do not, and unfortunately this is probably the best you can do. But even without those mods, as a recap, this build is still going to be extremely strong. With everything else playing into it, you're going to be able to suspend everything 24/7 with your grenade and class ability. Your super is very good. Your melee is a pretty good utility melee, but that is going to be getting a lot of buffs. You have infinite cooldown with your fragments, a permanent 60% damage reduction. Your suspend makes enemies just stay in the air forever, and with the amount of cooldown you have, you can pretty much make enemies not do anything for 100% of the game. Quicksilver Storm got buffed and fixed. It is just an absolute powerhouse now with this build. With Sig Coyote, again, you're going to be getting that other dodge, so you have 4 cooldowns in total to suspend enemies. You even are going to be producing a good amount of heavy ammo since you are running an exotic primary weapon, and it also will be applying to your teammates, so you're suspending everything, giving them heavy, so it kind of acts as a support build in a way. That is honestly the build. Is very simple. Literally suspend everything, run kind of whatever other guns you want to, and you are good to go. Now, if you were curious about the transmog of the build, this is currently what I'm running. For the recap of the Strand builds, I tried to go with the more red look. I just kind of thought it looked good. So for my Warlock and Titan, I definitely went like red/brown. But yeah, if you like it, be sure to copy it down and you can make your hunter look like this. But all right, I think that's going to do it pretty much this build. Let me know what y'all think about in the comments below. Have you been playing Strand Hunter? I know it is really good, but things like Void Hunter, especially with this season alone, it is just ridiculously strong. But maybe when next season comes out, this will see a little bit more play, and I definitely think you can get a lot of use out of it. Anyways, if y'all enjoyed and learned anything new, consider subscribing, drop a like, and turn notifications on. Also, if you enjoy my Discord or follow me on any of my socials, all that will link in the description as well. But just know watching this video is way more than enough, and that every single bit of support from you all is truly appreciated. Thank you all so much for watching this one, and have a great day. Peace.